Thank you for the opportunity to be with you and for this workshop. And you'll notice that I addressed you as ladies. I can tell. You do things that I don't do. And you have things that I don't have. Makeup, lippy, earrings. I save a fortune not having to buy those. And you can tell I'm a man. I have things that you don't have. Hairy legs, bushy eyebrows, and you pay a fortune making sure you don't have those. We're different, aren't we? Not better, not worse, different. God made us that way. We read in Scripture that He said, so God created mankind in His own image. In the image of God He created them, male and female He created them. God saw fit to make us women and men. Two different beings, equal in status, worth, value, importance, both shaped and formed in His image. And sadly, the present and the past reveals that many men don't get that. Sadly, in our cultures and communities, in workplaces, churches and homes, women aren't held in the same status as men. And if I had the authority to ask your forgiveness of all men, I would do that without a moment's hesitation. And He made us differently. He made us differently. When it comes to relationships, don't those differences drive you nuts? Why couldn't God have said, I'll make them both in my image and I'll give them both the same brain, the same desires, the same emotions, the same outlook on life, the same sexual desires, the same interests, and they'll live happily ever after? For some reason, God said, let's make man and woman two different beings, give them two different brains, and then tell them to get real close. That should be fun. Let's face it, a lot of men just don't get you ladies. Sigmund Freud said the great question that has never been answered, which I've not yet been able to answer despite my 30 years of research into the feminine soul, is what does a woman want? And Will Ferrell, the comedian, said trying to understand women is like trying to smell the colour 9. Stephen Hawking said women are a complete mystery. I can understand the universe, but not a woman. Even the Bible provides us a bit of a warning. Better live on the corner of the roof than share a house with a quarrelsome wife. It is better to live in the corner of an attic than in a beautiful home with a cranky, quarrelsome woman. Ladies, I promise, I tried to look for some text about men, but I just couldn't find any. But maybe this quote will help us. Here's all you have to know about men and women. Women are crazy and men are stupid. And the main reason women are crazy is that men are stupid. Yeah, take that one home. This afternoon we've been invited to reflect a while on the differences between men and women and see how those differences might be managed and built on to enrich our human relationships. That's a challenge, but we'll have a crack at it for a short while. Michael Collins states our failure to recognise and appreciate these differences, that is between men and women, can become a lifelong source of disappointment, frustration, tension, and eventually the downfall in a relationship. So it's worth taking a little bit of time this afternoon to reflect on these differences. Men and women. Let's start off with the brain. Research continues to point to the fact that our brains are wired differently. Now, for years, I thought that my wife's brain, her name is Carol, and we'll be married 44 years at the end of this year. I always thought her brain was the same as mine when we got married. So I couldn't work out why we did things differently. Either she, fell when she was a child, hurt her brain or something. Seemed to be foggy. Here's some good news, ladies. The female brain is slightly smaller than the male brain, but studies show that this has no significance on a woman's brain's performance. That's good news for you. That's encouraging. And in 1997, Danish researcher Bert Packenberg demonstrated that on average, a man has 4 billion more brain cells than a woman, but generally, women test around 3% higher in intelligence than men. Take that one home. Yeah. When you go home, say to your man. Eh? A study conducted in 5 Western countries asked men and women to describe the kind of person they would ideally like to be. Same list of words. And men overwhelmingly chose adjectives like bold, competitive, capable, dominant, assertive, admired, and practical. And for the same list of words, women chose warm, loving, generous, sympathetic, attractive, friendly, and giving. Fascinating. Same list of words. Women rated service to others and meeting interesting people high on their list, whereas men rated prestige, power, and owning things as important. Generally speaking, men went after things, women went after relationships. From the same list of words. A fascinating study was conducted in 2015 where the researchers looked at MRI scans of about 1,400 people. And first, they measured the amount and location of grey matter in 116 parts of the brain, got lots of parts, to find out which areas had the biggest sex differences. So they studied all these brain, looked at the grey matter, and said, let's see if we can sort out sex differences. And next, the team scored these areas on each scan as either falling into the female end, the male zone end, or somewhere in the middle. And it turned out that maybe 6 in every 100 of the brains they studied were consistently a single sex. Only 6 out of the 100. Many others had a patchwork quilt of masculine and feminine features that varied widely from person to person. You've got a bit of male brain in you. That's a worry. To check their findings, the team used similar methods to analyse more than 5,500 people's personality traits and behaviour. And according to the research, while some activities were common in women, including scrapbooking, chatting on the phone, and keeping in touch with mum, and others in men, such as playing video games and gambling, 98% of those studied didn't fit a clear gender profile. And their conclusion was this, that the human brains do not belong to one of 2 distinct categories. However, while the MRI research was going on and it focused on brain structure, another scientist has been exploring the way the nerve pathways that link them, like a highway system for the brain's traffic. And he, instead of studying the structure, he's studying the links between them. And this is what he said. Our studies are finding significant differences in the brain circuitry of men and women, even when they're doing the same thing. It's like 2 people driving from Philadelphia to New York who take different routes but end up at the same place. Well, I can understand taking different routes, but ending up at the same place, you're kidding me. If you and I end up on the same planet, we're doing well, and more in the same town. The researchers suggest that women have more connections going left and right across the 2 halves of the brain. This could give them an advantage in pulling together information from different sources and drawing conclusions. The left half of the brain handles logical thinking and the right is associated with intuition. So, ladies, it seems that your left and right parts of your brain are much more connected than mine. But for men, the connections seem to go this way, front to back. Right? Instead, male brains have more connections from front to back, which may provide strong connections between brain areas for motor and spatial skills. That means males tend to do a better job at tasks that need hand-eye coordination and understanding where objects are in space, such as throwing a ball or hammering a nail. Now, when I share that with you, I can just tell, ladies, you are just fascinated by, this hammering a nail. And you're going to tell me, oh, I love the way my husband can hammer a nail. I come home exhausted from work. I can hardly remember what I had for lunch, never mind what I'm going to get for tea. The kids are crazy. The rubbish bin's overflowing again. The sink's full of dishes. The handle on the bedroom door has fallen off again. But all I need to do to feel good about life is see my husband hammering a nail. And the world's right again. Honey, got your hammer? Isn't it interesting that you go this way, we go this way? It's fascinating. Did you know that we are more susceptible to certain diseases because we're male and female? Here's some more research for you. Research suggests that women are more susceptible to mood disorders. Gee, that surprised me. Twice as likely as men to experience clinical depression in their lifetimes. Twice as likely as men to experience post-traumatic stress disorder, and more susceptible to anxiety than men. But that's because they're married to men. Yeah, okay. But men are twice as likely to become alcoholic or drug dependent. And if we're keeping scores, because you know what, they go down and get drunk. No, we won't go there. 40% more likely to develop schizophrenia, more apt to have dyslexia and other language problems, and notice boys' dyslexia rate is perhaps 10 times than girls. More likely to be diagnosed with autism, ADHD, Tourette syndrome and raised toilet seat disorder. Dr. Michael Connor said this, "Yet the differences can profoundly influence how we form and maintain relationships that can range from work and friendships to marriage and parenting." Those of us who are married here this afternoon, or those who have a close male friend, or those wanting to get married, I don't have a lot of time, but we could slip it in this afternoon. If you want to get married, you'll need to bring a man with you. But anyway, not quite into same-sex marriage just yet. We need to recognise how frustrating these differences can be. Just take shopping. For women, shopping is like talking. Doesn't need to have a specific point or objective. Can take place in an unstructured way over several hours. Doesn't need a definite outcome. In fact, most women find shopping rejuvenating and relaxing, whether or not they buy anything. This type of shopping gives man a brain hemorrhage in about 4 minutes. Men become anxious and frustrated in a dress shop when a woman tries on outfit after outfit, asks his comment, and that's risky. Does my bottom look big in this? Now, see, we as men know we're in trouble right there. Because if we say yes, we're gone for weeks. Right? If we say no, you say you're fibbing. But ladies, you can walk into a shop. You have about 10 dresses all in out and you try them on and I've seen you pull them down and then you can walk out and leave them all there. My wife did that recently. I think it was 12. And she said, "No, thanks, I'm not interested." I felt like rushing in it. "Look, here's $10 for your time." And how do you do that? A man's clothing usually reflects the male brain set, predictable, conservative and bottom line oriented. But see, you ladies love testing a wide range of clothes because that fits the pattern of your brain. A range of emotions and feelings and each different outfit to reflect the mood. And ladies, how about standing in front of your wardrobe and saying, "I've got nothing to wear"? You've said that? Yesterday? My wife said that recently. She stood in front of the 3/4 of the cupboard and she said, "I've got nothing to wear." I said, wear that, that'd be good. Just go like that. She didn't like that. And I made a mistake, ladies. I said, let's count them. 1, 2, 3. I said, why don't you wear this blue one? That looks really nice. You know what she said? I don't feel like wearing blue today. Can you imagine a guy standing in front of his cupboard and saying, I don't feel like wearing red today? Well, he wouldn't have anything red there in the first place. So if it's in the cupboard, put it on. In fact, if it's in the cupboard, it's a bonus. It's not in the ironing cupboard. Right? It's up there. It's most for put it on. If it doesn't match, doesn't matter. Just wear it. Got nothing to wear. Driving. In the past, if a woman was driving and she was lost, you know what you ladies would do? You'd hop out and ask somebody. Oh. That's a sign of weakness. We say things like, it's close by here somewhere. I'm just taking a shortcut. Oh, we'll be right. Thank goodness for GPS. GPS stands for Grand People Savers. Yeah. Takes the worry out of it. Oh, there's a book that you can buy, ladies, Why Men Don't Listen and Women Can't Read Maps. The bathroom. When a man goes to a restroom, he usually goes for one reason and one reason only. And that's not to have a rest. Why do we call it a restroom? Serious. Bathroom. You don't go there for a bath. Well, I hope not. Be tight fit. Bathroom. Women, you ladies, you use restrooms as social lounges and therapy rooms. Women who go to restrooms as strangers can come out lifelong friends. You exchange phone numbers, recipes, photos of the kids, arrange a shopping, trip, a holiday. I've seen you ladies, you're sitting at a restaurant and one of you will say, I'm going to the bathroom, anybody want to come? What do you do in there? Can you imagine me as a bloke sitting in a restaurant and say, hey boys, going to the toilet, want to come? Maybe the place where we really experience these differences is in the talking department. That's where I think we especially recognise we're different. Ladies, the building of relationships through talk is a priority in your brain wiring department. Research tells us that you can effortlessly speak an average of 6,000 to 8,000 words a day. You use an additional 2,000, 3,000 vocal sounds to communicate, as well as 8,000 to 10,000 gestures and, facial expressions, head movements, and other body language as well. That gives you a daily average of 20,000 communication words to share stuff. 20,000 a day. That may explain why the British Medical Association recently reported that women are 4 times more likely to suffer jaw problems. But But compare that number to men. Us blokes, we just utter 2,000 to 4,000 words, 1,000 to 2,000 vocal sounds, and a mere 2,000 to 3,000 body language signals. That's daily average of about 7,000. Yours is 20. Ours is about a third of yours. That's why this speech difference become apparent at the end of the day when you and your spouse sit down together for dinner. We've used up our 7,000. You got about 12,000 left. And a man wonders why you don't stop talking. So you ladies generally talk outside your head. We as men talk inside our head. Right? If you've got something to talk about, you go outside your head. Round, round and round. Us blokes, see, if I got a problem, I put my shoes on and go for a run or a walk and solve it inside my head. So the tricky bit is when my wife comes home, see, and starts talking, we as men have got this idea that if you tell us something, we're going to fix it. We are natural born fixers. We love fixing things. Every man's got to have his man shed. And it's the same with words. And when you ladies come home and start talking, you've got to remember that the natural first thing a man will do is, she's telling me this to fix it. So we dive straight into fix-it mode. Don't you hate that? Okay. And we think, wow, where did she get all these words from? And you give us so many words that we run out of the ability to fix them all. We were left, see, we can only do one job at a time. That's how our brain works, right? You start talking, we centre on that first problem. We're trying to fix that. You've added 5 more. We love fixing things. My wife came in, true story, my wife came home from uni one day and she started telling me about her boss who was creating, one of the ladies there who was creating a hassle for her. I thought, I can fix that. That's my job. And obviously she's telling me to fix it, otherwise she wouldn't bother telling me. So I went down to the computer and started typing, dear, and I was serious. I called out, what's her name? Silence. Oh, it's good, I'll leave it blank. Dear, please be, and I wrote up this fab letter. Please be advised that you are bothering my wife. And said, you know, back off and stuff, you know. I kept it vegetarian. And my wife came down and stood there looking at me. She said, what are you doing? Typing the letter. What for? Well, you got to take it to this lady. What's her name? And she looked at me for an egg for brains. No. I'm typing your letter. What for? I don't need a letter. Yeah, you got to fix it. But I don't need a letter. Well, why'd you tell me? If you don't need a letter, you don't tell me. See, us men love fixing things. So ladies, if you come home, start talking, get ready. It's a natural, normal thing to do. So you need to tell your husband, honey, zip it. Honey, I want you first thing, before I talk to you, go and look in the mirror. How many mouths do you have? 1. How many ears? That's right. Switch that off and switch these on. God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for purpose. You'll have to tell him because he doesn't know. Okay. So, and then you can start chatting to him and hopefully he learns to listen. And what happens is that, as we said, because a woman talks outside her head and a man talks inside her head, that silence for a man can bother you, I guess. When you come home and you start talking to your man and he goes quiet and silent, you think, hey, come on, talk. Especially if your man's stressed, right? If he comes home all stressed up, say, come on, honey, tell me about it, talk. That's your brain working, not ours. We just want to sit there quiet and sort it out. And so a good friend of ours, a lady, single mum, we were visiting there for some reason. Her son, about 20-something, come in the door. She said, hi, son, how was your day? Tell me about your day. What did you do? Who did you see? Did you have a good day? And I'm thinking, let him get in the door. And she's doing what she needed to do, right? All he wanted to do was to sit down, come in and shut up. That's what a man wants to do. See? Because you like to talk. It's normal for you. Communication feeds your female psyche. Don't feel bad about it, but just get ready to be misunderstood. And the silence of us, you want us to feel better by talking, but that's what you do. And see, under stress or pressure, a woman's speech function is activated and you start talking often non-stop, don't you? If you're stressed, you talk lots to anyone who will listen. Someone down the street. And you can talk about your problems to your friends for hours, giving a thorough report of details, and then you give the problem another post-mortem, and then you study the post-mortem and talk about that. And you can talk about present problems, past problems, possible problems, problems that have no solutions. And when you talk, no solutions are sought as you receive comfort, relief from the process of talking, right? Your talk is unstructured and several subjects can be discussed at once. That's a staggering thing for a man. That'll drive us nuts. Because we feel as if we've got to solve them all. Got to fix them. And if there's any men, I noticed a few token men here, bless you. Men, I just talked to them for a sec. Man, the best thing you and I can do is learn to listen to our wives. And we just learn some really neat key listening words. They're not difficult. Things like, uh-huh. Took me ages to get that sorted, but I got it now. Uh-huh. Oh. Oh. Wow. I found that last one really neat because I was really tired and said it backwards. Didn't matter. Wow. And if I really wanted to score points, I'd say, how did you feel about that? Ooh. The tricky thing for us men is if we ask you what's the problem and you don't tell us what the problem is, then what we do, and you hate this, I know, is we say, oh, don't worry about it. Get over it. It's nothing. You're worrying too much. That doesn't go well, does it? No, because that belittles who you are, because your story is important. And we as men need to learn, ooh, and stay with you and invest in your story. Because my experience has been, and research tells us that as you ladies talk about it and go round and round without having to solve the problem, you may, if there is a problem, solve it. And if you don't, it doesn't matter. You just feel good by talking about it. That's the way your brain works. It's all okay. Keep talking. That's good. But I have a solution for you, or something to share with you ladies as well. When it comes to listening, a common expression women use, it's a bit of a turn-off for men, is, you're not listening. See, when a woman uses that phrase, it frustrates us blokes because we're doing our best. You know, we're having a crack at it while we're watching telly or something. But it also reminds us of our mothers, because that's how our mothers talked to us when we were kids in trouble. You're not listening. Okay. So when a woman says you're not listening, it's generally because the man is not giving her his full attention. Yeah. He's hearing her with only one part of his brain, and she wants all of him, don't you? So ladies, here's a thing. When you go home and your husband is indicating you that he's not really listening, the worst thing you can say to him is, honey, you're not listening. He'll come back and say, yes, I am. He's having a shot. My wife was on the phone not long back. There's an L-shaped kitchen. She's on that side and she's chatting on the phone. And I think she's talking to a sister. It sounds pretty heavy, but anyway. I'm a man. I'm on a job. I'm on a mission. You know the little rubbish bin you have under the sink? You all got one of those? Yeah. So I was going to take that out, tie the knot in the plastic bag and take it out to the rubbish bin outside. So tie a knot really good. And I'm carrying it out, and as I'm carrying it out, my wife puts the phone down and started telling me about that conversation. Now, I'm smart. I know I've got to listen. So I'm saying, yeah, oh, yeah. Came back inside, and she's standing there like this. Put on the whole armour of God. I'm in trouble. Said, you're not listening? I said, yes, I am. You're not listening? Yeah. I went, oh, yeah. She said, no, you're not listening. I said, yes, I am. This was dangerous, ladies. I said, in fact, I can tell you exactly what your last sentence was. And I said it, ooh. Lucky she wasn't carrying a weapon. And then we both started laughing because we knew what happened. Ladies, the best thing you can do is say to your man is, you are not giving me your full attention. There's your homework. Huh? New line. Don't say not listening. He'll say, yeah, he is. You're not giving me your full attention because that's what you want. When a woman is emotionally distressed, a man often panics. Oh, my wife is crying. This isn't comfortable territory. I've got to get out of here. And if he can't escape, he'll quietly say to himself what I just said, put on the whole armour of God and brace yourself. He'll most probably say something like, I just remembered the car urgently needs an oil change. This is because the skills in negotiation of emotions are pretty limited in a man. It's like you're in emotional university, we're in emotional preschool. You ladies have a brilliant way of emotions. For us blokes, it's wild territory. It's not real good. In fact, if men's emotional communication skills can be likened like a toolbox in the shed, he's got a hammer and a tyre level, and neither of them are real gentle. We're not real good with emotions. In our culture, we've been told not to real men don't cry, right? Now, we're getting better, but that's been a message for years. In fact, I'm fascinated. In our Western, I can speak for our Western culture, when it comes to funerals, have you noticed that we ask an interesting question? How did they cope? You notice that? I find that question fascinating. Somehow it's really important to cope. Imagine if we didn't cope. And how does a man cope in Western Australia, in Western civilization, Western society? Really well, something like this. At a funeral. Yeah, cope really well. Really? If we weep and cry, didn't cope real well. It's fascinating. We're not allowed to share our emotions. And if there's one message I hear from ladies often, it's, I don't know who my man is. He lives in his head. There's nothing here. I was in a Pacific island a couple of years ago. Ran a church service where I interviewed little kids and middle-aged and businessmen and a matriarch of the island. She was a well-known matriarch. And I interviewed her and I said, you've got 3 minutes. What would you like to say to the congregation? She said, can I? And I said, what have I done? And she paused and she said, you men out there, this is Pacific Island. She said, you men out there, we're tired of this silent, quiet stuff. We want to know who you are. You share your hearts and your thoughts and your feelings with us and come alive. And all the ladies got excited. See, us men sadly have been taught to put a lid on our emotions. We need permission and educate. We need to be taught how to share how we feel. And when one of my tasks, which I love doing, is basic counselling skills for clergy, for pastors. We need to give them permission to feel. We actually hand out literally a big list of feeling words and say, have a look at some of these. Didn't know they existed. Because we don't know how to feel. And I'm convinced that a lot of loneliness in marriage is because we don't know how to do that well. And what men often ask is, what are women trying to accomplish when they become emotional? But that's a hopelessly male question, right? What are you trying to accomplish when you're emotional? Because when men say a woman is being emotional, they're not talking about joy and happiness and fun and play and adventure or passion. They're positive emotions. We don't have a problem with those. It's the dodgy ones. Men have a problem with the so-called negative, like sadness, anger, fear, disappointment, jealousy, loneliness, shame, insecurity. They're the difficult ones. And the majority of men believe that talking about these feelings will only make matters worse. Wrong, right? We think, if we talk about sadness, it'll only make it worse. But that's the way you ladies work. Your brain is wired to air and talk and go around those. And as you do, you're able to calm and soothe. But we as men think, we can't talk about that. I saw this neat little cartoon the other day where this lady and man are sitting opposite and she says, our marriage is in trouble. I think we should talk about that. And the man quietly says to himself, my marriage is in trouble. I better shut up about it. Most women don't feel this way about these emotions. For a woman, there are no negative emotions. For a woman, there's no point to being emotions. Emotions just are. They're as natural as breathing. True? You don't generate a way of, I better feel sad. No, you feel sad. You feel all those emotions. But for us men, we're not sure what to do with those at times. And so we struggle a bit with that. And emotions are opportunities for intimacy. They are opportunities to build connection. Wouldn't it be neat if the local TAFE ran a weekly course, Communication 101, just for men? It was free. In fact, if you attend, there's a free barbecue after the program, football replays at halftime, a free screwdriver set at the end of the course. Maybe men would go. And when it comes to stressful issues, a man mistakenly feels that if his wife is to feel better, she needs some solace and quiet time. Have you noticed that? And sorry, ladies, that's where we get it wrong. We've got to learn that as well. When you are stressed, for us men, when we're stressed, we kind of like quiet time. But for you as stress, my experience has been in the research is you like us to come to you, right? Just come close and hold me. Now, that's tough for men because that just doesn't make sense to us, right? But that's what you want. Hold me, hug me, and let me know it's okay. That's not easy for us men. Because when we're stressed, we want solitary space. But for you ladies, the worst thing we can do is leave you in that time. And Susan Johnson says to us as men, turn towards the raw. That's the phrase she uses, turn towards the raw. Are you kidding me? We as men are designed, if there's danger, you run. When we hear the roar, fight, flight, or freeze. Run. When you ladies get emotional, sad, lonely, teary, that's like there's the roar. Run. Everything in us says, move away from that. It's dangerous. We don't know what to do with it. And we as men need to learn to say, hey, and turn towards you. That's tough. I'm putting up my hand. It's tough. But if we could do that, I think that would make a difference, right? If we could come towards you and draw closer just when you need us most. If we could learn that skill and be men of courage and walk towards you and let you know it's okay, we're with you, we're there for you. We'll just be silent, be ready to listen and hear you out. What a huge difference that would make. And research continues to demonstrate that the best thing we can do to enhance and enrich our intimacy in marriage is to not try to talk you out of your feelings, not try to minimize them, ignore them, belittle them, but to provide you the safety you need to express and share them. We need to learn not to get angry and frustrated as you work through your emotions, not to walk away or give you the silent treatment, but to stay present and let you know that we are there for you and ready to hear from you. And this provides you the assurance that all is safe and okay to work through those feelings. Sharon Hart Morris wrote this, despite our differences deep down, we all want the same thing, to have a close, emotionally safe relationship and to feel loved, respected and understood. You might remember John Gray wrote a book, Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. I think he overdid the cave model, but he's written a number of books, Mars and Venus Together Forever. In one of that he said this, today's wives do not leave husbands because they're not being provided for. They leave because they are emotionally and romantically unfulfilled. And then he said, husbands do not leave wives because they can't make them happy. Generally speaking, a man gives up on a relationship when he feels powerless to succeed in fulfilling his partner. That suggests to me we need to spend more time talking about and understanding how we work as male and female and working out ways of honouring and caring for each other better than we do. John Gottman's research is very, very significant. John Gottman, if you heard of him, he and his wife established a clinic or a love lab, he called it, in Seattle. It's just an ordinary unit looking out over the harbour of Seattle, and he invited couples to come and spend time in this unit. And they bring their stitching and their knitting, that was the men, and their newspapers. And they just knew, but there was a bit different. There were 3 video cameras on them from 9 in the morning to 9 at night. He had sweat measures on them, because when you and I sweat, it's often an indication of nervousness. He had heart and blood pressure monitors to see what was happening in conflict. He even set up a gigalometer to measure how much the chair was moving, because when we're nervous, we often wriggle in the chair. And he studied these couples for 15 to 20 years. And he went back and tracked all the ones that sadly divorced, ended their marriages. And he sat there and watched for hours this couple living in this unit. What did they say? How did they say it? How did they talk? What was going on? He had just pile and pile of data. And then he studied all the ones that survived and went back and looked at all that data and wrote a book called The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. And he said this, he said over 60% of couples divorce not because they're fighting all the time, but because they're lonely. Because one or both are lonely. People, we don't fight apart, we drift apart. It's the loneliness that comes first, the fighting comes later. Do you realise the significance of God's words to Adam? It's not good that man should. Loneliness is an antidote it's a healing thing. Do you realise that you and I, when we are lonely, now there's a difference between alone and lonely. You and I can be out on the water here in our kayak for all day and not feel lonely. We might be alone, but not lonely, because we know when we come home someone's there for us. But we can be at the footy, 80,000 fans, and be lonely as. And the long-term effects of loneliness is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. That's the impact on our health. It's not good that you and I should be alone. We're designed to connect. We are designed for intimacy. It's exciting. Scripture has some instructions for us. Husbands, love your wives. It's not that we can't love, ladies, just we forget. We don't always show it well. Husbands, love your wives. Do you know what he said to the women? Did he say, wives, love your husbands? No. Why? Because you know how to love. You love so profoundly. But as Emerson Eggerichs, you might have heard of him, writer, Christian writer, he said, you can ask men, does your wife love you? Yes. Does she like you? No. Husbands, love your wives. What did he say to wives? Respect your husbands. Husbands, love your wives. Wives, respect your husbands. And then it says, the key to creating fond feelings of love in a wife toward a husband is to show her unconditional love. And the key to creating fond feelings of love in a husband toward his wife is through showing him unconditional respect. And the meaning in those words, the textual structure in the original language clearly suggests that men are to love their wives even when they're not being very lovely. And wives, you are to respect us as men even when we're not being respectable. That's not easy, but that's the Christian covenant of relationship. When a wife is complaining, criticizing or crying, according to Emerson, she's sending her encoded message, I want your love. And when a husband is speaking harshly or sometimes not speaking at all, he's sending his encoded message, I want your respect. Here's something that I want you to remember, ladies. During marital conflict, men placed a higher value on feeling respected than on feeling loved. Isn't that interesting? In conflict, men were asked, would you prefer to be loved or respected? And men easily said, we want to be respected. Eggerichs suggested 6 ways a woman can show respect to her husband. Appreciate his desire to work and achieve. Appreciate his desire to protect and provide. Appreciate his desire to serve and lead, to analyse and counsel, for shoulder-to-shoulder friendship and for sexual intimacy. Shanti Feldon wrote a fascinating book called The Secrets of Highly Happy Marriages. And what she did, she asked hundreds of couples to indicate whether they were happy or not, and based on the rate and the answers, she pooled all these people who were really decidedly happy. And she said this, highly happy spouses choose to believe their mate cares for them no matter what they're seeing from their spouse or feeling at the time, and they act accordingly. They choose to believe the best of their partner. And she says, my research on happy couples showed that an extraordinarily high percentage of them were often, without realising it, doing a few little specific actions that were making their spouses feel deeply cared for. For most of us, a handful of simple day-to-day actions increases the likelihood that our spouse feels that we care deeply about them instead of feeling that we don't. And she's a lot of highly happy married couples, when you ask them, how come you're happy? They're not sure. They can't spell it out. But they're doing lots of neat little things. And here are some secrets for you, lady. If there was so many, I'd tell them, but this is for you this afternoon, what she found in her research. She said a wife will have a big impact on her husband's happiness when she does the following. Notices his effort and sincerely thanks him for it. That's twice. For example, she says, thank you for mowing the lawn even though it was hot outside, or thanks for playing with the kids even when we were so tired from work. That pleases 72% of all men. Do you realise that is significance of thank you? Seriously, if you say to your husband, honey, can you make the bed? Now, if you haven't taught him how to do it, he's in trouble. But if you get him to make the bed and he makes it, but, the pillow's not quite in the centre. There's a bit of a wrinkle third way down under the quilt, and the quilt's not quite straight. Whatever you do, don't go crook. Don't walk in and say, stay in the crows, you've got no idea how look, let me fix it. You're gone. You'll be making the bed for the rest of your life. Serious. If you say, wow, look at that. Whoo. Honey, nobody in Melbourne makes a bed like you do. Look at the way you've done that. Whoo. You know what? He'll be in the spare bedroom that night practicing on the spare bed. I say to ladies, honey, tell your husband, honey, nobody mows the lawn like you do in East Prahran. You'll be out at night with a torch mowing them. You know what? Women thrive on communication. Remember, it feeds your female psyche. Men thrive on affirmation. It feeds our male psyche. Here's some research I want to show you. I'm going to hang on to this tight. Women long to hear the words, I love you. Men long to hear the words, thank you. A woman saying thank you to a man is the emotional equivalent of his saying, I love you to her. There's your homework for today. If he whips up tea when you go home, ladies, just thank him. Doesn't matter if it's a big bone. We love to hear the words thank you. And I think that statement, that's research. She says, you did a great job at something. Sounds familiar, same kind of thing. Number 3, she mentions in front of others something he did well. Hey. Hey girls, should see how my husband makes the bed. And men, there's a few men here. Men, when we're standing with our friends, our mates, and our wife comes along, how do you describe your wife to your men? Brace yourself, boys, here comes a second mortgage. Oh, hang on, boys. Here comes a dragon. I can feel the heat. No! Hey, boys. Have you met the princess? Hey, boys. Have you met my number 1? She shows she desires him sexually and that he pleases her sexually. Sorry, ladies, but it's just us blokes. If you want to go crook at that, go crook at him, because that's the way he made us. All right? Yeah. Don't know why God didn't make us the same. Yeah, okay. She makes it clear to him that he makes her happy. Isn't that cool? She makes it clear to him that he makes her happy. For example, she expresses appreciation for something he did for her with a smile, a words, a big hug. 85% of men, it pleases them. Remember John Gottman? What he found was this. There were 4 things that couples practice, and we're going to finish on this because it's time I went and caught a plane. There are 4 things that women did and men did in his unit that pretty well might have would indicate that their marriage was going to kind of go down the gurgler. Now, there were several things, but I'm just going to share with you a few. And he called these the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. He's a Jew, he knows Revelation. Number 1, criticism. Criticism. A criticism is a bit different to a complaint. I can complain to Karen and say, honey, you're supposed to get petrol in the car. It's Friday afternoon, you forgot. That creates a problem. That's legitimate, right? But if I say, oh, stone the crows, you forgot petrol again. You were so much like your father. You're hopeless. See, that's criticism. It's character assassination, right? That's the difference. And as soon as you dive into criticism, and the next one is contempt, and that takes about 7 years in a down-the-hill marriage. Contempt is the worst of the four horsemen because it conveys disgust. And often we don't use words to convey contempt. We just use our eyebrows or our eyes. We just roll our partner says something. Contempt conveys this. Imagine having intimacy and a closeness in a relationship. If we convey disgust, it isn't going to happen. Now, quick quiz. Which gender, male or female, would be most at risk for using criticism in a marriage? Those who think men? Those who think women? Way, you're harsh on yourselves, but you're right. Ladies, you tend to use criticism more than us blokes. I wonder why that is. You love criticising, yeah. Who generally is the relationship caretaker, women or men? Remember that selection of words? Love, kind. You love relationships. We like things, generally. You go up, you're the relationship chaser, we're the chasers. If something's wrong, you go after it, we run the other way, generally, okay? So you go after it. The crazy thing is that you have this idea that if to fix something, you'll go crook at him. Oh, pick up your clothes off the floor. Oh, I'm sick of stepping all over the clothes. Pick them up. And you somehow imagine that when you say that term, he'll spin around and say, oh, honey, of course. How silly of me. How silly of me. Like, yes. Does it happen? So why do you keep doing it? It's like if you come to me and I'm a mechanic and you bring me a car and you say, oh, it's noisy, it's not going properly, because I know you women, you're not always good with cars, but it's okay, it's okay. There's a funny noise under the bonnet. So I lift the bonnet and I've got a hammer. All right, start it up and I get the hammer and hit it. Poof, poof, poof. Start up again. Does that fix it? No, didn't fix it. And all I've got's a hammer. What can I do? I can only hit it harder, right? Boom, boom, boom. Try that. Didn't work. Oh, maybe it's not broken. You know what I mean? We've only got one tool. We can only use more of it. But if it doesn't fix it, we need to throw it out. Ladies, criticism, it doesn't work with us blokes. In fact, the research says the more you persist after with negativity, the harder we'll fight back. So you've got to find a new way. I don't know what it is, but find it. No, it's all right. John Gottman found two more. Defensiveness. We get defensive. Me? No, not me. And what we call what he calls stonewalling. Stonewalling is where if you ladies say to me, and I'm your partner, imagine having all of you wives, I suppose Solomon did it, if you say, honey, tea's ready, can you come down now? And I'll just keep watching telly. Or if you're concerned about something, I'll just keep reading the paper. That's stonewalling. I'm letting you know, you just rattle on, I'm not interested, right? Which gender would be at risk for using defensiveness and stonewalling? Sorry, ladies. Why do we keep doing that stuff? Crazy. Here's three things that successful couples did for finishing. Successful couples got to know each other incredibly well. What John Gottman called enhance your love maps. Seriously, the best thing you can do is get to know each other really well. See, we think, us men, we think, I know my wife really well. Yeah? Yep. I know her favourite colour. And I know her favourite flower. What's that? Self-raising flower. When you were small, when you were between the ages of 10 and 12, who influenced you the best for good? Which was the safest room in your house when you were growing up as a child? If you had $5,000, what would you spend it on, apart from a gift for me? What's your favourite charity and why? So we get some really neat questions. And when you're driving together, ask each other questions. When you're lying in bed at night, ask each other questions. Get to know each other incredibly well, some good serious questions. I was walking with Carol some time back and she said, whose turn is it to ask questions? I think it's mine. If you were to die tonight, who would you like me to ask to take your funeral? I did ask her that. When she picked herself up out of the hedge, she... I don't know. I said, that's why I asked you a question. About 2 nights later, we go another walk. She said, whose turn is to ask the question? She said, I think it's mine. If you were to die tonight, I said, no, you get your own questions. But we ask questions, get to know each other incredibly well. They act as buffers and anchors for the tough times. It's like putting money in the bank, emotional money in your bank. And when the tough times come, you're not going to throw each other out because you've got this wealth of knowledge. Number 2, nurture your fondness and admiration. Nurture it. One of the biggest risks we take in marriage is we assume each other's love. We take it for granted. Seriously. And if you write assume on a board, which I'd do if I had one here, A-S-S-U-M-E, and put 2 lines through it, you make an ass out of you and me. Right? We can't afford to assume each other's love. Ellen G. White wrote a letter to her son. And in TF language, not Ellen G. White language, but she said, son, you work your tail off to win the heart of this woman. Don't stop now. Keep it going for the rest of your life. We need to date each other and take care of each other. Let each other know that our number 1. Nurture your fondness and admiration. And the third one, turn towards each other instead of away. This is particularly for us men, but turn towards each other instead of away. And John Gottman illustrates this lady who was in the unit, and she hopped up out of a chair and she went over to the window and she said, oh, look, there's that boat that went past yesterday. And now he says, I'm going to watch the husband because he's going to either be a breaker or a maker of his marriage. And I thought, you're kidding me? And he said, some men turn against. They say, oh, what would you know about boats? Isn't that horrible? Or they just sit there and do nothing. Turn away. So the smart husbands turn towards. They hop up and they say, oh, yeah, no, look, the sail's different, I think. Man, a few men here, when we're shopping, pushing the trolley, right? Isn't it neat that they fix the wheels now? They don't go wonky. And we're pushing the trolley and our wife says, honey, have we got any bleach? Don't just stand there. It's beginners. No, just say, honey, I'm not sure. Let me go and get some just in case. When you go home, you've got 15 bottles of bleach, but it doesn't matter. You got a marriage. The most important relationship skill of all is anticipating setbacks and acknowledging the necessity of relearning a lesson until it becomes second nature. This understanding gives us the hope to be patient and the forgiveness to be loving. May God bless you all in your relationships. May they be everything they can be. Thank you and take care. Do you have a little prayer? We'll finish with prayer, do we? Why don't we do that? Lord, we thank you for our marriages and our relationships. We thank you for making us who we are. Male and female, you created us in your wisdom, not ours. Forgive us for getting it a bit messy. Help us, Lord, to invest in finding strategies and ways of connecting and building a close marriage, a close relationship, a close friendship that can just be a really neat model of your love for us. We thank you in Jesus' name.